Welcome. It is no accident that you have found your way to the Release the Genie podcast. What would you do with 3 wishes? And what if you discovered that you are in fact that very genie that could grant them? Well, join us now as we discover who our next genie is as we listen in and learn the stories of triumph, inspiration, and passion with some very special guests. And now, without further delay, your host of the Release the Genie podcast, Mr. Paul Rogers.
That's so much better. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in from. I am your host, Paul Rogers, and welcome to another episode of Release the Genie. I've got the distinct pleasure of having this genie, which is this is my second run because my connection was terrible the first time. So it's a great excuse to catch up with Ahmed Flex Omar. This guy has got more accolades than I can count, but I'm just going to give you a few of his highlights. He is a council member of the United Nations. He's a human rights activist. He's a social entrepreneur. He's a network builder. Now, this guy, he can build these like no one else. He is the co-founder of MALA, which is the Muslim American Leadership Alliance, and the Chicago Leadership Alliance, of which he is the founding member. I can now take a breath. And Flex, how are you doing? Good to see you back.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm introduction. And it all comes back to community work. There's always that tie-in. But
to us, and I know from talking to you before that you are passionate about serving your community and making sure everyone's okay, which at the moment it's exactly what's needed. So I'm going to hand over to you a little bit, Flex, just to sort of offset the back scene. So tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Ahmed Flex Omar. I am originally from a country known as Somaliland at the moment, but previously it was part of Somalia. I left the country when I was 3 years old due to an incoming impending war. And unfortunately, there was genocide that was committed. So in order to survive that, I had to flee with my family to the UAE, to Abu Dhabi. And I grew up in Abu Dhabi, lived there for 16 years. And while I was growing in Abu Dhabi, I've lived a very privileged life because Abu Dhabi and the United Arab Emirates are one of the richest places on earth. But at the same time, I was 3 hours away from Somaliland. So it was a tough time. But my first time back was in '94, and it was a year after Black Hawk Down in Mogadishu in the south. But so the war had only ended maybe a couple of years later. So there was incredible amount of turmoil. No running water, no electricity. It just basically looked like a zombie apocalypse, and it was a bit, scary because I do have fond memories, even though I left there when I was really young, and really taught me a lesson early on in life, and I had to mature very quickly, because the childish pursuits or things that I wanted just went out of the window. Wanting things that my friends in the UAE wanted was just not something that I was interested in anymore, because I've seen so many children that became orphans, so many people, get injured. So my first thought was like, well, how can I help? Because I was able to escape, So I was able to mobilize my friends in the UAE and get them to give up belongings that they don't need anymore. And some of those belongings tend to be new toys, new games, sometimes new phones, just because, there was immense wealth in the country, but there's also a lot of generosity. UAE is one of the most generous countries in the world. So I would leave on summer holidays when the school was on break, and with a couple of bags, and then come back with no bags, because I just wanted to do what I can. So that was sort of like how I got, started into like community service. But I do come from a family of teachers, civil servants, and merchants, so I guess the family business is, education and commerce and diplomacy. So it was always just about being surrounded by people, so it just came naturally. For me, you really don't know as a child where you're going to end up and what your path is, and what, everyone's just trying to get young people to figure out, okay, well, where do we want to go? And but you just don't know, so, but I was very lucky that I could read about, my family, and other folks that lived a very inspiring life, and just hope that one day I would be able to accomplish, maybe even a little bit of what they did. And I came to the United States at the age of 19, and settled in Chicago. Went to college here at Loyola University in Chicago, and I worked in early on when I first actually got to the United States. I worked on the west side of Chicago, and unfortunately, the west side of Chicago is known for the violence that and the killings, the gang shootings. But at the same time, there's a wonderful African American community, there. And so I worked for the community organization called the West Side Health Authority. And basically, they did a lot of work, to serve the community. And I was the assistant tech coordinator. So I would do network infrastructure, build computer labs, and connect computers, because they did have the grants for the equipment, but they just needed people to put it together. I had really no experience in network infrastructure, but I was always into computers, and but I just picked up a book called Networking for Dummies. They were really famous back then. So I just went to the local Borders bookstore and just read the book in the cafe, and eventually just figured it out. But I was very lucky because my boss appreciated how well I was able to, learn the knowledge, but also I was also proficient in, doing like database management, like Microsoft Access. I mean, so I was really big into computers in my high school, too. So I won the first place prize for a computer project. I basically built an airline management system, so, and yeah, so this is before Salesforce and all those things. And then I realized that after working in IT for a couple of years, that IT was something that I could learn on my own, but I really wanted to learn business. So that's what I majored in at Loyola University. Did accounting, worked for a big company called RSM McLadry. I believe now it's just RSM. And then moved to Deloitte. And actually before that, I also worked for Union Bank of Switzerland. So I was able to experience, the finance world and see how commerce actually worked, and especially in the age of computing, and I got a well-rounded education in the business world, and I decided I wanted to do something. I think you're seeing a pattern here.
Yeah, there's a sort of recurring theme with you, because and you know what? Let me just go back. This is your third country you've lived in, and you've lived a lot of life already. I mean, to be honest, most people, if they could achieve that for the full 40, 50 years, but yeah, I mean, I'm blown away. And so I'm going to let you carry on with your recurring pattern here.
Yeah, absolutely. So my next life ventured into consulting for hospitality businesses. And the reason is actually I worked for the Hilton hotels after I left IT, and while I was attending Loyola University in downtown Chicago. The hotel I worked for, the DoubleTree Hilton, was only like 2 blocks away, so I could walk to classes, walk back to work. I mean, it was just so convenient to live in a metropolitan city like Chicago, because I was able to balance, a full-time job and also going to school full time. And I was able to build a lot of relationships as a college student, just because I had a great relationship with the staff at the hotel, the executive group, and because I was always thinking about the next step when I graduate. What job am I going to land? And I just talk to anyone and everyone. And because of that, I was able to meet their friends that were in the industry. So I would meet their friends that owned restaurants. I would meet their friends, or I'll just accompany them, just because, I built that rapport and relationship, with them. And from there, while I was actually working in finance, I would also send business to all these people that I've had relationships with, and and it was great for clients, because conventions and travel and business travel is a big deal, and this is before social media. So if you wanted to find out which restaurant to go to, what you need to do, and I would just show up with a PDF and say, well, here's the top 10 places, and here's the top 10 people that you can contact. So I was always looking.
So you were kind of Google.
Yeah, I was a bit of Yelp for Yelp.
So I mean, you were the walking internet at that stage.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you. So I mean, I'm just really big about maintaining relationships, and so there are people that I'm still in touch with that I've known since the day I first got to the United States. So that's really big for me. And basically, I was able to build those relationships, and then eventually, I figured out that I can monetize on it and offer other consulting services. I started getting interested in marketing, and I took a marketing MBA class through Wharton, and learned about the new age of marketing that's connected through social media, through Google, through Amazon, and the focus on customer centricity and all that. So I went to these businesses and I said, well, there's a new generation of people. There's a new generation of tech products that are coming. How well are you connecting, with your audience? And the other thing that, because I was in that industry as a college student, I learned that there was a high turnover. So with, if you wanted access to the corporate, spending, budget, then you had to maintain those relationships. But unfortunately, if you have a high turnover in your staff, that's an issue. So I sort of was like the middleman, and I would basically take a service fee for the work that I did. And then from then I started working with non-for-profits and sort of advise them on how to create experiences and engage with younger people, millennials. And at the time, and even now, they're more interested in philanthropic efforts early on, as opposed to at a later age. So with that being said, I taught them how they can connect with the younger people, but younger people wanted, an experience. They're not going to come to an event that has sports memorabilia from the 1970s or 80s. That's
But
not.
you do know that all that stuff's now come back in fashion. So we've just stayed still, and we're now popular again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You just have to know what your audience, wants. There's something for everyone, but if you want to scale, you need young people that are on their phone. Their thumbs are constantly like sharing, clicking. I mean, that's basically free marketing for you, and it just expands your mission. So social media was just new to not-for-profits, to the hospitality businesses. So that's sort of where I found my niche. I didn't really have like a company that focused mainly on social media, but I just focused on covering anything that had to deal, with events. So I was basically in a sense, I became a consultant, but it also gave me some income to work on other projects that I was interested in. Tried a couple of startups, and things did not work out, but it was always a learning curve. And eventually, I started a passion project, which is my current non-for-profit. It's no longer a passion project; it's a full-time job called MALA, Muslim American Leadership Alliance. And basically, the idea was, why are we not able to tell our own stories as opposed to the media owning our narrative? And it was a very tense moment in time. There was a lot of misunderstanding. I mean, 9/11 happened, and then in the years later, you had the Iraq War. You had so much tragedy, and then after that, you've seen the birth of groups like ISIS and so on, and then the media just focusing on playing tapes of Bin Laden, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Do you know, they always like to have a villain, don't they?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and there's always somebody else to blame, and I can see that that was a big challenge there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole thing was just to do something locally and reach out to friends and ask them to share their personal stories, just so we can maybe move the needle a little bit in terms of what our stories are. And then we connected with another non-for-profit called StoryCorp, and basically what they do is they record audio recordings, and they have partnerships with NPR and basically radios all over the country. And our stories started landing on the radio, and this was early on in our journey, which was incredible because we had no website. I don't think we had a business. I don't think I had a business card. So we got a call from the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., and that's where the U.S. Constitution is. And so when you get a call from the federal government asking you to come down to help with the archival process, you get a little bit confused, because the first thing that comes into mind is, well, first of all, I'm not a librarian. I don't know how archiving works. Secondly, I don't have a budget to come to Washington, D.C. I mean, this is a passion project. Like, well, we don't have an archive for Muslim American stories. So basically, we created the first ever archive at the Library of Congress, and all these stories get digitally archived now. We've done over 500 stories, and it's incredible because 100 years from now, a young kid that's doing research can just go in there and listen to the stories. There's someone that just wants to learn the story of their grandfather, great grandfather, and just go hear him speak in his own voice. So and it's truly powerful. So from there, it really the work and the organization started scaling, and we ended up basically getting a lot of recognition, and we received the Volunteer Service Award from President Obama. So, and all of a sudden, I'm walking around in late 2016 with a medal from President Obama, which was really incredible. And that actually meant a lot, just because Obama is also from Chicago. I've seen his journey, and I've met him before he even became president. My friends worked for his campaign. I helped out, with his campaign, in a small part. But he was really great at engaging young people. And when you talk about social media, he was the first social media president.
I mean, to be honest, you're absolutely right. He managed to span effortlessly. He could sort of move from one demographic to the other without actually breaking a stride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a great storyteller. I mean, he talked about the stories of his grandparents and his grandfather volunteered in World War II after Pearl Harbor, was attacked. Being a proud Hawaiian, himself. So just stories just really
it's the power of story, isn't it? I mean,
Power of
that's
stories, yeah.
because I mean that's what people remembers. And just to go back to the archives, you've left something there which is going to immortalize. It's a legacy well after all of us are gone,
Sure.
that people can actually reach back to a piece of history. And there's not many people who can say, I have a piece of history. So that's an incredible thing to do, my friend.
Well, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's didn't plan it out
No.
that way, but here we are.
You know, they're kind of like the best things, because I doubt very much that you said, yeah, I think I'm going to aim for the archives.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, to be honest, you know, as I see your story unfold, you know, you trailblaze wherever you go. So it's, you know, and I'm very pleased to have you here as a genie, because I'm hoping this is going to be one of your steps on your journey. So,
Absolutely.
so look,
Absolutely.
sorry, you
No, I said
carry on.
absolutely. I think the way the world works is right now, with especially being in a tough time and being in a pandemic, the more interviews that you do on, podcasts, such as yourself, the better to help build your personal brand, because the first thing people do is they run a Google search on you, and obviously, you're recording a lot of stories. So my story is going to show up, on Google, and that helps me, helps my organization's mission, helps with our storytelling project. So it's a win-win.
How you found, because you know you've always been into social media.
Mm-hmm.
How have you found, sort of, now that everyone's been thrown onto it and networks have evolved? How's that
Yeah,
sort of affected you?
sure. I think really understanding how social media works, understanding how algorithms um, work, and just keeping one step ahead
Mm,
of what the next iteration is going to be, because Facebook is not what it was 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. It continues to evolve. So with that being said, it just takes a lot of reading. I do a lot of reading, and sometimes technical knowledge that at times it'd be so boring, but it's the boring stuff that gets you to where you need to be. So once you get comfortable with the boring stuff, then the other stuff is just, what, we're just
yeah.
having fun.
I think it was Bill Gates who said, or even maybe Steve Jobs, that
Yeah.
the nerd in your class will be the boss. So,
Yeah.
so that, you know, I like that.
I'm a fun nerd, though. I think I'm
No, no,
a bit more fun than Steve Jobs.
You know, you're very much the center there. You're not on either of the extremities. So, I mean, wow, what a amazing thing. So, what was been sort of one of your aha moments, one of your sort of release the genie moment?
Definitely the Library of Congress, and
Mm,
getting the award from President Obama, because it really elevated me to a national stage and also a
mm,
global stage, where I was interviewed by Voice of America, and I appeared on the radio back home, internationally. So many my family members who were not aware about what I was working on and what I was
mm.
doing were truly proud. So that was a great moment, and just building off of that momentum, and building programs that benefited so many people is honestly, so 2015, 2016 felt like a decade of my life.
To be honest, I'm feeling it for you here. As I said, you've lived like 3 or 4 lifetimes now. So wonderful, and I'm dying now to know. You know, there must be a sort of inspiring quote, because you're doing inspiring things. So I'm really interested in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I always believed in is local impact leads to global impact. So if everyone takes care of their own neighborhood, their own community, serves their constituency serves their people, then the world will be a better place. So in my mind, it's like, well, how can I replicate this in other communities globally? And that's actually what got me into the UN's Economic and Social Council, where I would meet with young people who are idealists and activists from all over the world, and also finance ministers from all over the world, and just people in power. And because I'm in that group that's like an elder millennial, I can connect with both generations. So I can connect with the social media generation, but I also remember a time when you picked up the phone and you called your friend and you expect them to be there at that specific time. And if they were not there, then that's what happened. There was no text messaging. There was none of that. So I grew up I grew up in that age when technology was just in its infancy to what we know it right now. So I can relate to both sides, and I always try to be that bridge, because we need all generations to be involved if we're going to see progress.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. You can't take one section and expect the rest to actually just, not to move. So,
Right.
fantastic. And, I'm getting a real feel for your sort of, your never ending sort of, you're like a Duracell bunny where you just keep going. So, what was kind of one of the setbacks? You may have already touched on it. What was one of the setbacks which you've had to overcome?
Yeah, when I first came to the United States, I actually brought my sisters over, and they were all younger than me, so I had to raise them myself, go to school full time, and work, full time. So I was lucky to be working in IT, so I had a decent, income. But then at one point, I realized I just couldn't do. The schooling and also have an intense, job. And I wanted a job that had a little bit more flexibility, but I wouldn't be making as much money. So that's when I started working in hospitality. But you never know where life is going to take you, and you just have to believe in yourself and have faith. But because of the hospitality business, I was able to meet so many people and build so many relationships. And also my bosses were very, very kind, and they would give me flexible schedules that worked for my school. Yeah, taking care of my sisters, I had no manual. I didn't know how to be a parent, so I was basically running an incubator. I, I would basically treat them like founders of companies, and I was the VC, and I would say, okay, well, this is what you need to be successful. I will check in with you periodically. I mean, I wasn't micromanaging, and I feel like for the most part, it worked out. One of my sisters is a clinical psychologist. The one in the middle, she is a teacher. She also went back to school to study criminal justice, and now she's finishing up a program at University of Chicago. And the youngest one runs the Center for Entrepreneurship, the small business program at the University of Chicago. So they're all successful, and they're at a good place. So I'm not taking credit for anything.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I think you did well there, to be honest, because you were juggling a lot of balls there. So I think you're a very humble guy for sure. But I think the boy did good there. I think you did.
Yeah. I was definitely a boy. I mean, obviously when you're 19, you think you can do anything, you can accomplish anything. But right now, when I look back, I'm like, I don't know if I would basically do the same thing, but I probably would. I would have more doubts right now, just because of everything that I know in the world and everything that we went through, as a family. I would have probably asked for more help and been less proud.
To be honest, I kind of think most of us are in that boat, to be honest, because when I think back to myself, my problem was I wouldn't want to listen anyway. So, So look, tell us what you're working on at the moment, because you know you're so you got so many things on the go. So
Yeah.
what's going on?
No, absolutely. I'm always so the way I scale the not-for-profit is by building partnerships with brands that were well known to people. So when people see a Muslim organization, now they're associating it with a well-known brands. And the brand that I'm working with, ironically, right now is Facebook, and they're helping me collect stories of diasporas and African diasporas, Middle Eastern diasporas, and storytelling projects. We're also working with Dolly Parton's foundation, and I don't know if you're familiar with her story. And she has the Imagination Library, and she basically donates books to kids all over the country, the United States. So we're gonna be partnering with her and sponsoring books, for kids in different zip codes. We're gonna start in Chicago, but that's sort of like my 2021 project. I want to make sure that kids are able to find books and read and prioritize that. But also, it's just really cool to be working with Dolly Parton.
Oh yeah, I mean, to be honest, that's a name which actually everyone will recognize. So
Right, right.
that, and if you don't recognize it, Google her, or better
Yeah.
still, ask Mr. Flex here, because he will tell you. He's used to this game. So now, I mean, crumbs. I get to ask you for three wishes. So I think you're definitely overqualified for the job. So here we go. My first wish is, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice that I've ever received. I would say celebrate the small wins,
Mm-hmm.
because we're always constantly thinking about the big picture, and but if you celebrate the small wins, you'll get there. And it's just the way we're built as human beings. I mean, you get that dopamine, release when you post something and then people react in hearts, you're happy, so um, if you celebrate the small wins, you're gonna feel satisfied. And that's what I've been doing. And a lot of that came through maintaining a journal and keeping track of all the things that I'm doing. Because if you don't do that, you're always gonna have that level of anxiety and saying, "Well, I haven't done enough," But your journal says otherwise.
No, to be honest, I agree. The writing down bit is super important. So, and we touched on this as my second wish of what is the advice you'd give to your younger self. Now, I think we said you would ask for help more, but
Yeah.
I think.
I would be a little bit less arrogant. I mean, I wasn't completely arrogant, but because I was just natural at figuring things out on my own, and I would just rather pick up a book than ask a question. Um, I think there's no shame in asking for help, for advice, but as I've gotten older, I've learned that that is really important. Having a support structure is important. So I just surround myself with folks that are really smart, but come from different disciplines. So if I ever have a question on something that I have no clue, I'm not going to go do what I used to do, even though information is more readily available now on Wikipedia and all these, platforms. I still just do a 30-minute coffee talk with, a friend or a colleague or an advisor and so on. And then after that, I sort of like, after I've gotten the words of wisdom. So yeah, so as that would be the advice for my younger self is ask for help.
And I love how you've kept that theme into adulthood, and also you're inspiring other people to actually ask for help too. So
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it all kind of radiates out from you, so that's kind of nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Look, this brings me to my third wish, which is, what is one of the habits you have which attributes to your success?
One of the just endless positivity. You know, I'm
Mm,
the type of person that wakes up in the morning and I mean, as human beings, you know, you're not going to have the greatest morning every day, but even on my worst morning, I find a way to amuse myself. And there are times when I'm laughing at my own jokes. And so people, you know, walking on the street in the morning, I'm just, you know, smiling, laughing, and just finding, you know, things to be grateful for. And yeah, so that's my habit. And I wrote a blog post about your morning routine, and I described what my morning, you know, routine is, and it really affects, you know, your entire day.
mm,
And how I start my Sunday affects my entire week, because Sunday is actually when I start my work, because it's all about the prep game. Once if it's all in the preparation, so if you're prepared, you know, then you won't get stressed, you won't get anxiety. And I always make sure that on Sunday I list what I need to prioritize for the week, because I'm
mm,
not going to accomplish anything. You know, I'm a lot wiser now. And but at least if I hit 50% off those tasks that I prioritized, I'm happy. You
mm,
know, and if I hit, you know, even more than that, then I'm overjoyed, and I find a way to reward myself. And
mm,
honestly, you know, reading psychology books and so on, you know, and then figuring out that sort of like rewards, you know, loop and habits, you
mm.
know, how habits, you know, work, got me, you know, to sort of like to this conclusion that I need to constantly, you know, it's sort of like gamifying
Mm.
things, right? Because you're like, okay, level one, level two, level three. So when you gamify sort of even the way you approach, you know, things in life, it's a lot more fun.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
and also you get a big boss fight at the end of it, each
yeah,
level, so that's kind of fun too.
exactly.
I mean, I love that because, you know, a lot of people hit Monday stone cold,
Yeah,
and then they try to sort of start the motor.
right,
But
right.
if you already got your direction, you got your motor started, Monday's going to come around and it's just straight
Oh
through.
yeah, my memes, my videos, like all my stuff is prepared for Monday morning, and I just unleash them, you know, for people, because I want folks to have the same level of energy that I'm having on a Monday morning.
Awesome, awesome stuff. So you did mention that you're a keen reader. So what's been one of your favorite books which you've sort of go back to when you need to?
Um, to go back to, I think it would be Relentless. I believe it's called. Tim S. Grover. He's
Hmm.
Michael Jordan's coach, and he's not. He wasn't the team's coach. He was just Michael Jordan's coach,
Oh,
and basically, he's the person that taught him how to become a champion, and win championships. And he trained him. He trained. Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul. Uh, he trained LeBron, you know, and he runs a group out of Chicago called Attack Athletics. And his book is just incredible. And
mm,
he just tells you how to get into that elite mindset, no matter what industry you're in, because it's all about, you know, your brain. It's all about, you know, your mind. And so he's just a fascinating individual. So times when I need a little pick me up, and he doesn't hold back, and I have him on Audible, so you can hear
mm.
him in his voice, and it's really powerful, moving stuff. So I'm basically getting the same, um, you know,
Coaching as they did.
coaching, yeah, as Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
To be honest, you know, and also, you know, it's pep talk, as you said, because, you know,
Yeah,
these guys don't just talk in a hello, this is, they're full of energy and passion. So,
yeah. And
love it.
and the storytelling of like
Mm,
talking about certain situations, about handing out, you know, small paper notes at halftime to, elite, athletes, so they can focus on what they need to do. And sometimes it would be like, words like focus, or, because at times, that athlete might be enjoying himself, too much, or playing for the crowd instead of, focusing, on the game. And so it's really fascinating how the mind works, and why it's really important to have coaching, why it's really important to have mentorship. And I've been very blessed that I've been able to build that into my own community, build scholarship programs, build a fellowship program. And I've done 2 years of the fellowship program, and just sitting back and watching what the fellows have been able to accomplish, it just sort of like becomes a multiplier effect of, what goals that I've had, so anytime I mentor someone, it just multiplies my impact to the world.
I love it. You really are the epicenter. I know I said it before, but the more you talk, the more you're the stone that drops into the pond and watch the ripples go. And I love it. I mean, it's you're I'm going to sum up because it's just going to be natural here. You build bridges between different generations. You're obviously a master storyteller.
Thank you.
And don't forget your humble beginning, where you actually learn networking for dummies. I mean, so to be honest, it all goes back to a very small thing. Yeah. So,
and marketing, that was my first introduction to marketing, because absolutely brilliant, because the way they put together those books, anybody could read it and understand it, and it wasn't boring, and there were visuals, and it was just an easy read. And back then, most books were super, technical.
Yeah. No, I mean, the sales now are going to skyrocket. So you need to buy some shares.
Make a comeback.
Yeah.
I haven't with them, but they were just great books, and they were very useful to me.
Perfect. Well, look, where can we get hold of you? Where do you hang out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Ahmed Flex Omar. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. My handles are Dr. Flex Show, and that was the nickname that was given to me by my doctor friends, just because I would end up at a lot of doctors' events, and my name tag would say Dr. Flex, and it's been a recurring joke. And I decided, since it's going to be, since the joke is never going to die, I might as well just own it.
To be honest, it suits you and fits you very well. So,
Thank you. I mean, I'm in good company with Dr. Dre and the other doctors.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Hey, and you get coached by Michael Jordan's coach, so there is a theme going on there too.
Absolutely.
So, well, look, thank you so much for coming back again and sharing your story and inspiration and lots of really helpful takeaways for people to really attack the week. I love it. It's really, really inspiring stuff.
Thank you. Anytime.
And also, you got a medal from Mr. Obama. So, this is all good stuff, my friend.
I appreciate it.
Well, look, thank you very much once again. And wow, I hope you've been inspired and moved by Flex's wonderful story from very humble beginnings to actually making history. So, if you want to follow in this great man's footsteps, it's easy to do. You just need to have the right mindset and pick up whatever you want to do for dummies, and you'll be there.
Lovely.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you everyone the next time. Stay tuned and release your genie this week.
Well, that's a wrap. You have been listening to yet another episode of the Release the Genie podcast with host Paul Rogers. Be sure to follow Paul on the LinkedIn platform and learn more of Paul's resources at www.takeactionacademy.ca. And until next time, as always, be mindful and be sure to release your genie. Thanks for listening.